In April 2013, 4 days before the initial release of this book, my longtime client, Kobe Bryant, tore his Achilles tendon. It takes years of tireless dedication and unimaginable hard work to build a legacy like Kobe's. It takes a single instant to change everything. 1 minute you're finishing the regular season and preparing for the challenge of the playoffs. The next minute you're preparing for surgery and the challenge of rebuilding your body and your future. I'm not talking about the split second it takes to sustain a potential career-ending injury. I'm talking about the moment immediately after the unthinkable happens, when your instinctive reaction determines everything else that's about to happen. No one would have blamed Kobe for collapsing in pain and frustration. He could have allowed his teammates to carry him off the court to the predictably solemn applause that loyal fans give their fallen heroes. Instead, he went to the free throw line to finish his work. To me, the only question was whether he'd make one shot or two. Made them both. Then he walked to the locker room. That is relentless. For Kobe, there was no time to think or plan or decide, no time to wait for instructions or hesitate. There was only his instinctive drive to keep going, to stay strong, to never quit. Even with a devastating injury, he finished the free throws and began the next chapter of his career. That's what this book is about. You don't wait to be told. You don't waver from your goal. When it's time to act, you act, instinctively and without hesitation. As you will read in these pages, done, next. The word relentless is used in sports to describe the most intense competitors and achievers imaginable. Those who stop at nothing to get the end result. In sports, being relentless is measurable by victories and trophies and championships and rings. In real life, being relentless is a state of mind that can give you the strength to achieve, to survive, to overcome, to be strong when others are not. It means craving the end result so intensely that the work becomes irrelevant, not just in sports, but in everything you do. The ability to be relentless is in all of us. That passage is from a book called Relentless, written by Tim Grover, who is a mental strength coach, a strength coach that has spent a lot of time working with professional athletes, namely one Kobe Bryant.
Three in particular professional basketball players who have played at the top of the game, at the highest level of the game that any NBA player has ever played at.
True.
Michael Jordan,
Dwayne Wade,
and Kobe Bryant. And you said he's a mental strength coach. Most of this book is about mental training, mental strength training, and he's also a strength coach. But he is a strength coach who understands the mental aspect of it probably better than anyone that I've ever read. And in fact, Kobe Bryant says that. Kobe wrote the He wrote the foreword, and in the foreword he said, Tim Grover knows more than anyone about the mental side of sports. And this book is the blueprint for discovering what you are capable of achieving, getting the results that you've never imagined, and reaching the highest level of success, and then going even higher than that. And that is, I know Kobe attributes a lot. You know, Kobe had an incredible mindset before he ever met Tim Grover, and that's one of the things that attracted Grover to him. But Kobe attributes a lot of his success and his getting to the next layer of his success to Tim Grover, which is kind of what attracted me to this book, seeing that he worked with not only Kobe. I wasn't a huge Kobe fan. I've learned a lot about Kobe here in the last couple of weeks, but Michael Jordan, that's the one I grew up with.
Yeah.
That's, if somebody asked me who's the greatest basketball player that's ever played the game, my answer is always Michael Jordan. And the stories that Tim Grover tells in this book about Michael Jordan, they go pretty deep.
Yeah, they do.
They're pretty raw, man.
I'm just thinking of one in particular. I think it was before the draft, and the Bulls front office was thinking, you know, they're kind of going through who they're going to draft, and they said, yeah, you got to pick Michael. And someone said, well, we would, but we need a center. And the guy says, play him at center.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Play him anywhere, right? Yeah, and you know, and there are stories like that about all three of these guys.
Yeah, it's all through the book.
And you know, because speaking of the draft, I mean, one of the things he talks about, I don't know if he talks about in this book, or if it's just a story that I've heard recently because of the tragic death of Kobe Bryant. But on the day that Kobe Bryant was drafted, you know what he did?
Yeah.
he went to the gym and started practicing, started working out. Instead of doing what every other athlete does after they get drafted, and that is to have a celebration party, makes sense.
That's in the book.
Kobe went and worked out.
Yeah.
Had a training session. Just a whole different level.
Mm-hmm. I think everyone focuses so much on success, that moment of success, the feel-good experience, and those really aren't what gets you through life.
Yeah.
It's the ability to function in the uncomfortable moment.
Mark that word right there, because we're going to talk about being uncomfortable a lot.
Yeah, sure.
And that's because it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary. And to go back to the idea of success, I think another thing is everyone has a different definition for what success is, and that sort of develops the framework for Grover's entire book, because he basically he explains how a certain type of person gets to the level of success that they are, and he has a name for them. He calls them cleaners.
Yeah,
and we'll have to define what that is here in just a minute. But the name for the other two kinds of successful people are
cooler.
A cooler is first, and then a closer.
Right.
And so basically, the title of the book is Relentless, going from good to great to unstoppable, or something like that. Is that the subtitle of it?
From good to great to unstoppable.
From good to great to unstoppable. So basically, he says that a cooler is good, a closer is great, and then a cleaner is someone who is unstoppable.
Right.
And I think he's using that to define how different people view success. So some people allow life circumstances to decide what they want, and they say, okay, this is good enough. This is where I'm at. I'm going to be successful where I'm at. This is good enough for me.
Satisfaction.
Yeah. And if that's where there are people in the world that are successful, and that's where they're at, and he considers those people to be coolers. Yeah. You might be a cooler out there listening to us, right? Then there are some people who they have answers, and those suggestions are given, but when problems arrive, one of the things I remember about talking about closers is that when a problem arrives, they will sometimes focus too much on the problem, and even perhaps at times make excuses for why they didn't succeed at the highest possible level. But they want to be the person that takes the reins, that takes the ball still, but they're still not quite at that other level. And then you get to
there's a line that they won't cross.
There's a line,
right?
yeah, exactly. There's a line they won't cross. They still have the desire. A closer still has a desire to make everyone happy. I guess you could say. Yeah. They're a good leader, and they'll recognized as leaders, but they perhaps maybe are the people person type of leader. And then you get to the cleaner, which is who we're going to spend most of our time talking about today. A cleaner is what Kobe Bryant was. It's what Michael Jordan was and still is, but was at the top of his game. It's what Dwayne Wade was at the top of his game as well. The more I've learned about Dwayne Wade, didn't know him. I don't follow the NBA, so I didn't know him hardly at all in terms of his successes and his mentality, the way he played basketball. But reading that book was very, very enlightening. But a cleaner is called a cleaner in Tim Grover's mind because, well, just using the example of when something goes wrong, rather than blaming whatever circumstance happened or rather than blaming somebody else, they take complete responsibility.
Yeah.
So they're taking responsibility for, if we're going to succeed, it's going to be because I'm taking this thing over, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it my way, and I'm going to involve all of you. But this is going to get done, and it's going to get done well. And when we succeed, they don't necessarily take all the credit, even though they might deserve it, but they are the reason for a lot of the credit. And if they fail, they will take credit for that.
Yep.
And they're not afraid to admit it.
Yeah. There's a couple colorful lines in the book about that too.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of colorful lines. In fact, we highly recommend the book.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you have a difficult time reading someone who's straightforward in your face, who uses the F word, things like that,
quite a bit,
then you may not appreciate the book. But if you can if you're okay, if you I want to say if you're okay with it. I mean, it's okay. People don't like cursing. That's okay. But if you can look past that and get the point and get the lesson from it, which I think is important to do.
Yeah,
it's valuable to do. Then it's you will get a lot out of this book. You'll get a lot out of it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned earlier. How do you define success? And I remembered this happened a long time ago. Being in high school, even I think is when this came up. Maybe in a little earlier, but one of my maybe it was an English class or something. We were asked to define success. What does success mean to you? And you know what my answer was to that?
It's hard to tell.
Success is being comfortable.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Because that's the opposite of what we're going to be talking about
That's exactly
today.
the opposite. And it's not, in preparation for this episode, I went back and I was reading some, different parts of the book and just picking up on things and well, Coach, my family has some things going on personally in our lives that we're dealing with right now that, we'd rather not be dealing with, but it just hit home with me that success isn't comfort. I was completely wrong in my assessment of that success. And
we'll cut you some slack. You're in 7th grade.
I think it's 7th grade or high school or something like that. But just the framework that Tim Graver puts around the idea that, you have to embrace a certain amount of uncomfort and a certain amount of hurt. And, as a successful individual, that hurt actually becomes a good thing. It reminds you that you're alive for
right.
one, right? And it kind of propels you in your journey of striving forward to have a better life and to live a better life and to be a better person. And there are some people that are successful that are coolers and closers, but the people that you read about in history books and the people that you read about in sports almanacs and things like that are people that have this, nonstop mentality of nothing is going to keep me from reaching my goal. Nothing's going to keep me from being the best that I can be. Those are the people that we read about.
And take it down to the smallest variable, because it's, for those listening right now, they might already have decided, well, that's just not me. I'm not going to ever be what you'd consider to be a cleaner.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have that mentality. Maybe I won't be written about in history books. But, how can you, if you treat it like if there's some kind of something inside of you, and I encourage, like if you're an adult and you've got a kid that's playing sports, by all means, have them listen to this episode. We have a lot more to say, but we're going to talk what we're talking about today is people who really want to be great at something, or just want to be successful in something. If you've made a commitment to do something and you want to keep that commitment, you want to be successful at it. How do you do it? And what it comes down to is what you're talking about right now, and that is becoming comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
So I would go back to your 7th grade, 8th grade, whatever it was,
right,
early high school answer and say, it was right as long as you finish that statement. Being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
That's a great word.
Because that is literally what it takes. Discomfort is what causes growth. I mean, let's take it to strength training, for example. Strength training, what causes muscle growth? If you are just starting out today and you're lifting 5-pound dumbbells, and you've never lifted 5-pound dumbbells, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but you're going to grow.
Yeah.
But if 3 weeks from now you're still lifting 5-pound dumbbells, and you've never progressed beyond that, those 5-pound dumbbells have gotten pretty comfortable. They've become a routine for you.
And you're not sore afterwards.
There's no growth. There's no longer any growth taking place. You're basically doing the same thing over and over again. And therefore, what happens is, what is the whole point of growing? It's changing. We want something to change. We want to be, if we're going to get better, we have to change. Well, if doing the same thing over and over again does not create any change, I mean, that's by definition, it's not creating change because it's literally the same. Then what happens is it's going to stay the same. And so one of the things that Grover hits on a lot in this book is every single day of your life, you have to do something that you don't want to do. You've got to make a decision every day. challenge yourself to be uncomfortable. Push past it's so easy to be apathetic. It's so easy to be lazy. It's so easy to choose fear of the unknown. And therefore, we just do the same thing every day.
Yep.
We just fall into the same routines every single day. And everyone has. So when we're talking about being a cleaner and whether or not you can be that person, that unstoppable person, the truth is every single person has the ability to do that.
Yes.
Every single person has the ability to
Yes.
do something that you don't want to do.
Yep.
That's going to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. The thing is, we just don't do it. That's the difference between someone who is great and someone who's not. That's the difference between athletes. Listen, student athletes, if you want to get lost in the shuffle, just keep doing the same thing that you're doing right now. The difference between you and those who are elevating themselves to another layer of their game, finding other layers, other gears in their game, is that they're pushing past discomfort. They're pushing past it, and they're saying, I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's not easy to eat differently, to eat better. It's not easy to, I have to push our girls in the weight room every Monday, Wednesday, Friday to add a little bit of weight. They've gotten to that point, weeks ago where it's so hard, right? It's so difficult to add weight and continue to keep good form. And I have to remind them, I know it's hard. I know it's scary. That's one of the reasons why they don't want to. One is it's hard. It's not necessarily they don't want to do it. I think they get scared. Well, if I can't lift it, what's going to happen? Well, we're here. We're spotting you. We're going to help you. Or drop it. We're okay. You're not going to hurt anything. Drop the weight. Literally drop it on the floor if you can't lift it. Things like that. But I think fear is what keeps a lot of us also from going to the uncomfortable parts of life as well.
Sure. Grover talks a lot about, you said before that people kind of make a decision not to be that cleaner. And, I think a lot of people would think, they would look at their life and say, well, I'm just this, but Grover uses a lot of different examples in the way people can rise above their level of execution and be something better. And, he talks about teachers doing it. He talks about administrative assistants doing it. He talks about
people who get into ruts.
Oh,
teachers.
Yeah, no doubt, right.
You hear young teachers, you hear advice given to young teachers, avoid the teacher's lounge, right? Why? Have you ever heard that?
No.
Yeah,
because everyone's in there negative. They're just, I'm tired.
Yeah, it's the place to go and just let your hair down, just let it out, right?
Yeah.
You're frustrated with the kids, you're frustrated with the administration, you're frustrated, and what happens is the teacher's lounge becomes a place to complain. It becomes a place to go and to complain, to blame, to make excuses, to do all the things that we don't want our kids doing, but we do it. And so listen, it's not just teachers. It happens in every profession, the break room, whatever it is. It happens to everyone. We get into ruts and work becomes hard. It becomes mundane. Things happen that we don't like. And instead of attacking it with positivity and attacking it and finding solutions, it's so much easier to go and moan about it.
And that's the difference between a cleaner, because a cleaner thinks about, when challenging things come, and I know this firsthand, when things come up in our lives that hurt us and disappoint us and, give us heartache, we're making those excuses and we're saying those negative things to ourselves, even if we're not, saying them to other people. And that holds us down. A cleaner recognizes those things and feeds off of them.
Oh, yeah.
Says, hey, I'm not in a great position right now, but I'm going to fight through this. Tim Grover used an example about Tiger Woods. I know some people love Tiger Woods, some people not so much, but after Tiger went through his back condition and had surgery and all that, one of the lines that Tim said is, which I'm paraphrasing here, from Tiger's mentality, I've been through all of this and you're still not able to beat me. You're in deep trouble.
Yeah.
I think that was a great line. That's a platform that people can use. The more that you undergo in life, the more that you suffer through, the more that you endure, and that's a biblical principle too.
Absolutely,
the better you are.
And it's basically you recognizing that you have control over your life.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the main points that he brings up in all of the, I think there's 13 different chapters.
Yes.
In all 13 chapters, he calls them 13, the relentless 13, right?
Yeah.
The 13 attributes of those who are relentless. And in fact, I think every chapter is labeled one because it's
Yes.
none are more equal. None are more important than the others. They're
Right.
all just as important. And really, the first one that comes to my mind, I don't have the book in front of me, and I actually don't even have a copy of the book. I bought it for my son 2 years ago for Christmas, and Brock has read it, I think, twice. I've listened to it once and read it once, and I'm actually going to buy myself a copy of it as well, because there are not very many books that I go back to, but this book has influenced my thinking in leading people and in leading myself. If I'm going to be the type of leader that I need to be for other people, whether it's student athletes or just students in general or other adults or in whatever facet of life that I'm in leadership, then I have to make sure that I'm living it, that I'm doing it as well. And man, sometimes, and this may, someone else may read this book and be like, I don't get what you guys get out of it, but it pumps me up.
Yeah, me too.
Not many things do that for me. There are movies that I go back to. I'm not a big movie person, so I don't watch a lot of movies, but there are, and especially if I've watched a movie once, I care less about ever seeing it again. That's why I've never bought a DVD or anything like that. I've had them given to me as gifts, but I don't have any desire to go watch them again. But there are some that I will always watch it again.
You see it on TV.
The Rockies, when the Rockies come on. I watched Rocky 4 before every single game from 14U through 16U, I think. It was like and you know what's funny? My son does. He likes Rocky 4 as well.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
My 9-year-old, I think over Thanksgiving break or Christmas break, we were watching all the Rocky movies.
They played them.
Yeah,
we saw them. But there, that's, I guess I got on a tangent there. It's been powerful. And one of the powerful things that it draws out is a relentless person takes control of their lives. Mm-hmm. They know that they can, and so they do. Whatever they want to have happen in their life, they take full responsibility for making it happen.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. I almost said if you can't do that, that's bullcrap. That's letting people off too easy. If you choose not to do that, because you can do it. I don't care what you've got going on.
That's the premise of the book.
Exactly. If you choose to decide I'm not going to take control of my life, then that you're responsible. You are responsible for whatever failure you end up with.
Right.
Then, with whatever kind of life you end up with. Then that's the difference. That's the premise of the book. If you want to be this, then you take control. You recognize you're in control, and ultimately you make it happen.
Yes.
Period.
Definitely.
You're responsible. You are responsible when it's good. You're responsible when it's bad.
Yeah.
Be responsible.
We're talking about Kobe, and obviously everybody knows now that knows anything about professional sports that Kobe passed away there a couple weeks ago, and with 8 other people.
Yes. Yes.
And one of the things that I heard was people on Twitter saying, I can't fathom how Kobe felt in that moment when the helicopter was going down. Mm. And they out of sympathy, they said, couldn't, he's probably scared, couldn't protect his daughter. And, I feel like if you read this book and you get some perspective on Tim Grover and you get some perspective on Kobe's mentality, I think you're painted a pretty good picture of the way that those final moments played out. And I think Kobe was in control. I really do, just based on
he was able to control what he would control. He could
absolutely
control.
Yeah, absolutely. And the takeaway from that, there's a lot of things that you can get from that story and what happened, the tragedy surrounding it. But there's important things in life, and there's things that we make a lot more important than what they are. Mm. And we kind of make those excuses. We use them as reasons that we can't be the people that we want to be, or we can't make the decision to take control of our life, like you said. So that's one of the things that I hope people can take away from that story, and knowing how Kobe Bryant approached not just life, because he wasn't just a basketball player. he was a coach and he was a dad and he was a husband. You know,
and we recognize that he wasn't always a perfect person.
Absolutely,
and neither am I. Recognize that later in life as well. Yeah,
and those are just more challenges, right? Those are just more excuses. You know, we're all gonna fall in those times where we make mistakes and fail and But if you're a cleaner, you don't let those things keep you from moving forward. Mm-hmm. And it's a great perspective. It's a great outlook. You feed off the uncomfort.
Yeah,
you know, the uncomfortable situation.
Well, and you're not. The more you do that, the more you feed off the discomfort. The more you.
It's a positive.
Yeah, and the more you have gotten used to, like it's normal, it's regular everyday life for you to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. The more opportunities it gives you to actually be extremely meaningful in the world.
Right.
I don't know if you saw the story. Was it a week or so? No, it was during the holidays, I believe. It was raining. It was a rainstorm, and there was a bad car accident.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long before Kobe's own accident. You know, before the devastating tragedy of the death of those 9 people in the helicopter. There was a car accident that Kobe was witness to, and bystanders said without hesitation he jumped to action. You know, how often have I driven by a car accident and gotten really nervous? Mm-hmm. You know, what do I do? You know, how, you know, can I even, is there anything I can do? Can I help in any way? Kobe's not a doctor. He couldn't help those people. I mean, he couldn't, maybe he, who knows? Maybe he studied a lot of medical, you know,
well, right.
but you know what I'm saying? I mean, but he knew he could do something.
Yeah.
He knew he could comfort people. He knew, and there was no hesitation.
No hesitation. He didn't think about it.
Right.
He acted.
Because discomfort wasn't a big deal.
Right.
It's not a big deal.
It wasn't enough to keep him from trying to try and be meaningful. That's the idea of done next.
Yes.
Right.
When discomfort comes, because it's not that big of a deal, it makes it a lot easier for you to have a really significant and positive impact in the world where someone is in need of an impact being made in their life. And if that's truly what you want, and I think that kind of a moment speaks to his legacy as much as going to the line and shooting with a torn Achilles.
Yes.
You know,
I
those
agree.
kinds of things.
Right.
I want to. There's one thing that I read some quotes from the book, and I wrote them down before we came in here today. And there's one quote that I want to touch on because there's something about it that just makes me pause and think there's something really powerful about this. And it was under a section where Grover is talking about, you know, cleaners just don't make excuses. There are just no excuses. If you are a person that makes a lot of excuses, that you are not going to reach the highest level that you can reach if you're an excuse maker. If you make excuses for yourself or for others or for your business or for your organization or for your team, there is just no possible way to reach the highest level. And so he's talking about that, and he says, you know, here, if you want to know the true sign of a cleaner, he says he feels no pressure when he screws up and has no problem admitting when he's wrong and shouldering the blame. When a cooler makes a mistake, he'll give you some excuses but no solutions. When a closer makes a mistake, he finds someone else to blame. When a cleaner makes a mistake, he can look you in the eye and say, I screwed up.
Yeah.
And there's just no hesitation.
Was that the text?
It wasn't exactly what it said. Yeah, again. He's not afraid to use
I read that too.
Colorful language.
Yeah.
But you know the part that stuck out to me this time when I read it? This is the line that stuck out to me. He feels no pressure when he screws up.
Yeah.
What do you see? For example, go to the baseball diamond or the softball diamond, and when a kid screws up, what do you see happen to them? Like in a moment, in an instant. And then sometimes it's hard if it happens in an instant and they realize it or they're able to shake it and go out. That's a level of success. I mean, that's mental success. That's good.
Sure.
But sometimes they can't shake it, and so they take their at bat to the field with them, or they take the bad play influences the next play, and then the next play, and it just kind of stacks and builds. And what you're seeing is like it speeds things up. When they make mistakes, they get that the heart starts pounding heavier. They get that adrenaline because they're ticked, they're mad about the mistake, and it starts speeding things up. The line that really got me was, he feels no pressure when he screws up. And you would think that would be the opposite for a person of this mentality, because it's like they hate losing.
Right.
They hate failing. But what they've learned, and I've learned a lot about in reading about Michael Jordan, some of the quotes that he's made about how many times he failed and how he learned how to use failure to become more successful. But there's a secret in there. There's a gem in there somewhere. We've got to all find that and understand that when you fail, I picture this. I picture a person who is at that level being able to fail and you can't even tell. Oh, they're probably burning up inside, because they hate losing and they hate failure, but they stay cool. Mm-hmm. They are cool under pressure. They don't allow that failure to speed things up.
Yep.
They stay under control.
They stay in control. Right. Yeah. Good word there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see those types of people, and I think it's easier to translate into sports, because that's where we're able to see people in the most challenging situations, and the most often. You're not, everybody you walk by on the street, you're not seeing them in a challenge. They may be going through a challenging time, but you wouldn't know it.
Right.
So that's why sports imitates life so much for us, because we see those challenges, we see those failures, we see the successes too, and you see those types of players that they seem unfazed by anything. By any moment, and even when they fail, even when they lose, and obviously a lot of people know the stat, and I don't know it offhand, but Michael Jordan missed more game-winning shots than he made. That kind of leads into that mentality of it didn't bother him.
Yeah, a person who is concerned about what others think of them would probably stop taking those shots.
Oh, yeah, good point. All right,
because. Well, I'm missing a lot of these, and so I'm gonna pass it up. He just never he wanted the ball. In fact, there was something said in that book, if I remember right, about Michael Jordan. One of the things we know about Michael Jordan is he was one of the best trash talkers on the floor of anyone.
Yeah.
And I think Grover said that people assume that when you're a trash talker, you are doing it because you're cocky and you're putting the focus on somebody else. He said maybe that's the way it is for a lot of people, but for Jordan, the way he trash talked to people basically put more responsibility on himself to back it up, because he would say to someone, you are going to be worn out from what I'm about to do to you right now tonight on this floor. And then so when you make that kind of a claim, if you say something like that to somebody and you don't back it up, then you have, you've silenced yourself. And he would say something like that just to put that kind of pressure on himself.
Yeah.
To step up his game and do it.
Yeah. And I think most people would say, well, yeah, but what if you're wrong when you say things, when you're trash talking like that? But that's the difference in mentality, because when a person like Michael Jordan says, I'm going to put 50 on you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He believes in his whole being that he's going to score 50 points on you. He believes it. Nothing's going to keep him from doing it.
We've all seen those games.
Yeah.
We've seen it in basketball with Jordan and Bryant and even, I would say LeBron James to some extent as well. Yeah. I know Grover has some opinions about James. He does not believe he's a cleaner.
Well,
has he changed? Has he?
Well, I don't think so. To a point for Dwayne Wade when LeBron and Bosh went to Miami. That was still Dwayne Wade's team.
Yes, it was.
It was still his team.
It was.
And really, you could tell.
Because of the mentality.
Right.
Not necessarily. LeBron blew him away in talent.
Yeah, yeah.
And skill. But that mentality, you're right. It was Dwayne Wade's team. And that's what we're talking about. There's a different mentality among the greatest, among those who you would say that's his team.
Right.
Tom Brady is an absolute cleaner.
Yeah.
And we've seen Tom Brady take over games. Mm-hmm. And you wonder, how do you keep how can this guy just keep winning? How can he keep doing what he's doing? He's a different mentality.
Yeah. It's that mentality doesn't just show up on, during the game on the playing field on the court. Yes. It's a mentality that they carry with them every day, and specifically in their approach to training and strength training and skill work and things like that. And you mentioned Kobe going after the draft to shoot shots. He also would shoot like 500 shots before practice and 500 shots after practice, So he would still do those things too. And
yeah, and he even had there were stories I read about him where he would not allow someone to stay at the gym longer than him. Like if somebody came along and they had that same kind of work ethic, and even if he was dirt tired and ready to be done, he took his 800 shots or whatever. If that dude was still there, Kobe would stay. He would not be the last person to leave.
Yeah.
He wouldn't let somebody else be the last person to leave. He was going to be that guy. And I think that's when we ask ourselves the question, how does that person do that again and again and again? How does Tom Brady do it? How does Kobe Bryant do it? How did Michael Jordan do it? How does Joe Burrow do it?
Yeah.
There's another up and coming cleaner probably.
Yeah, Joe definitely come to mind as you reading through some of these things.
And people, when we ask that question, it's almost like we want to know the secret. What's Tom Brady's secret?
Right.
Well, he's never eaten a tomato. Maybe that's a secret. He gets 9.25 hours of sleep every day.
Sleeps in one of those chambers.
Yeah, and we look for things like that, right? And that's what the whole diet industry is built upon, is the secret. The secret to losing weight quickly. The secret, the fitness. There's a lot of fitness stuff out there too. What's the secret to making gains quicker and things like that? And one of the things I love about Grover is just he flat out comes out and says, "Listen, there is no secret.
Right.
There's no trick." If that's what you're looking for, you're reading the wrong book, because it's not what I'm going to tell you. What I'm going to tell you is, here's what it takes. Do the work.
Yes.
You got to do the work. That's what it is. Whether you're an athlete, or whether you're a lead, working a business, or whether you're driving a truck, or whether you're going to school, whatever it is, the answer is simple. And the problem is people just don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And the answer is, you have to act upon it. You have got to do the work. There is no magic pill. There is no secret to anything. Believe it or not, that's the way it is. For kids that want to be recruited to play in college, there's no magic. You just got to do the work. You got to do the work. And we've talked about what a lot of that work is in a lot of our podcast episodes. We've talked about a lot of, especially early on, when we were talking sports specific stuff, baseball and softball specific stuff when it comes to recruiting and things like that. And we cannot emphasize it enough. There just are not any shortcuts.
Yeah.
There just are not any shortcuts.
Yeah.
It's every single day, a little bit at a time, consistently, routinely doing the work that's required to reach the goals that you have.
Yeah, and do the work. That was a title of one of your chapters. And was it Building Champions, or was it?
It was that was in Coaching Life. The book. Yeah, and it's just like anything. It's not original. I've seen and heard people say do the work for years.
Sure.
But the whole point of that chapter was basically saying what I just said there, because I too have a lot of passion about that. I get tired of the just looking for the magic, looking for it to happen magically.
Or something that keeps us from doing the work are those challenges that come in our life, and those uncomfortable moments, or uncomfortable situations
that appear as roadblocks, perhaps.
Yeah, and you kind of start feeling sorry for yourself a little bit, and you get maybe into a survival mode, so to speak. But I think that's one of the gems of the book that Tim wrote, that if you are able to embrace those uncomfortable moments, that's going to get you further than anything.
Yes. Let's talk about that for a second. Because that's a good point, Pat. We can come down hard on people and say, you're just not doing the work. But then there may be people out there who have experienced what we'd consider to be a roadblock, which is not in your control.
Right.
It's something that has happened to you. It's something that it's a circumstance that you have found yourself in that you cannot control. What do you do?
Yeah.
What can you do in that moment? And I think that we can actually do a lot more than we realize in those moments. And I'm going to say a word here that if you can visualize this, it's a word that's used a lot in these kinds of dialogues, and that is pivot. Just because something just because something came up in front of you as you're moving forward and life is good and you feel like things are going well, and boom, someone set a roadblock in front of you. Something dropped in front of you. The road just gave way underneath you, and you cannot keep going forward because it's out of your control. What then do I do? Mm-hmm. Well, take your foot, pivot, and find another direction. There's got to be another way to get there. It may not be it may be longer. It's not as long. It's not as short as what, but again, there is no shortcut anyway.
Right.
So just because it's going to be a little bit longer of a walk, you're still going to find a way to get there. Every time we come to a roadblock, if I'm going to the beach and I'm on the road to the beach and they say road closed, I'm not turning around and going home. Right. I'm not stopping and sitting.
I might try to talk my family into that.
You don't like the beach?
I just
Jeez,
don't. Yeah.
Louise, you don't like Christmas? You don't like the beach? What is wrong with you? I'm going to have to culture you a little bit more. I know where one of our trips needs to be for our Copperheads team.
South Carolina.
The beach, baby.
Yeah.
No. My wife's going there this weekend. Brock opens up this weekend.
Is she going
baseball?
Yeah.
In fact, by the time this podcast airs, it'll be over. We'll have to talk about next week when we record how his
Good
first
deal.
weekend came.
Absolutely.
Going to Coker, South Carolina to play, which is Florence, basically. So, but anyway, I tell you, if a roadblock comes in our way, we're still going to the beach. We're finding a way. Even if it means we got to take some back roads, we got to go over bumps, and we got to go in potholes. And if we get a flat tire and another roadblock comes up, like we get a flat tire or our car breaks down, we're going to take it to the shop. We're going to find ways. And it's all inconveniences, isn't it?
Yes.
Those are incredible inconveniences. But I am going to reach my goal somehow. I'm going to get there.
Yep.
And nothing's going to stop me. That's what it means to be unstoppable. Pivot. Find another way.
And it's kind of cliche, but in that example of having all those roadblocks and all those excuses not to go to the beach there, once you make it to the beach and you're laying there on the beach under the sun, you're going to appreciate it a little bit more.
Oh, heck yeah.
And not only that, but the next time you're going
somewhere, more relaxing.
It is going to be a lot more relaxing. But the next time that you're driving somewhere, you're traveling somewhere, and you run into more roadblocks, you're going to be more confident that you're going to find your way to your destination.
No panic. We've been here before.
Right.
So, man, let's take that back to the ball diamond again. Let's take it back to the field or the court or whatever it is that you do as a coach, as a player. Let's create some uncomfortable moments for our kids.
Good point. Yeah, right.
Instead of making practice, again, let's go back to practice. Instead of making our training easy and comfortable, make it as uncomfortable as you can. Put them in some uncomfortable scenarios. Make them have to solve problems. Make them have to figure things out on their own. Because then, when it actually happens during the times when it counts, they'll be able to go, "Oh, we know how to handle this."
Right.
Skip Bertman told a story to one of his LSU teams years ago in a documentary video that was done on him called The Road to Excellence or something like that, or I can't remember, but it's hard to find. I got it on VHS, and you can't find it anymore. If you look it up on Amazon.com, you'll see like $60,000. It's weird. Sometimes you look up things that are out of print, and they got these weird astronomical prices on them. But I remember one moment in that documentary where he's standing out in the outfield in Omaha for the College World Series, and he's talking to his team before the game, and he's giving a pregame speech. And one of the things that Skip Bertman always did was he told stories. He loved telling stories. And he stood out there, and I was just glued onto this story. I'm watching it through the TV, and he's telling them. He says the guy's specific name. He's a Navy fighter pilot, and he's on this particular flight in this particular war, going on this particular mission. And he says that when he's up there and they go to the mission, there is just no wavering, there is no nerves. He is just basically doing his job, and the reason he's able to do his job is not because he's done it before. This was the first time he'd ever actually had to go and fight in the plane, but because of hours and hours and hours of going through the simulator, of practicing and having to simulate what he was about to experience for real. It created in him a confidence to know that nothing is going to happen right now that I can't handle.
Right.
Nothing. I hear SEAL teams talking about that when they train. Jocko talks about that a lot in his training. He says he makes their training and their simulations so much harder than what they're actually going to experience on the battle. That he's actually had SEALs tell him, War was actually easy. Imagine that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because they were never surprised. They thought of everything possible to put them through. And he said, listen, these guys cuss us out. They hate it. But when they get over there and they experience it and they know they can respond without hesitation, without fear, with confidence, and they can secure the mission, they come back and they say, thank you. Thank you for making practice so hard. I'm telling you, there's just no, the reason why games are hard is because our practices are way too easy.
Yeah.
And the reason why everyday life, it seems hard for us, everyday life, job problems, family problems, just issues that come up. The reason why they seem hard and stressful is because everything else, we embrace the easy life.
Yeah.
That's what we want. We want the comfortable life.
We think success equals comfort. That's right.
7th grade Pat colliding with
You're right.
35 years old Pat.
Wow. Thanks, Coach.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
39 in a couple days.
Sweet. Your birthday's in a couple days?
February 9th.
We going out to eat?
Well, I don't know.
We're going to...
I'm going to drop something on you that may shock you.
All right.
I can't stand birthdays.
Actually, you know what? I'm with you there.
Oh, there we go.
It's not that I can't stand them. We just never really make them special.
Yeah.
They're not that big of a deal in our family. I mean, when I say our family, I mean like my nuclear family that I've created. You know, my wife and my and my kids probably want them to be more special than they are, but we've never done that with birthdays. And I'm not saying anything about people who do. I mean, it's just one of those things that it's never been that big of a deal. We'll acknowledge it and send a card or get a gift or two, but maybe go out to eat. But especially between April and I, we don't do anything for each other.
Neither me and Chastity.
Yeah, and the older our kids get, the less we do for them too.
That's long gone now.
After a while. People get mad at me for forgetting birthdays and things like that, and I just sorry. Birthday's just not that big of a deal to me. Sorry.
Yeah, I
sorry.
know. Yeah.
You got older. Great. What do you accomplish on a birthday?
You're gonna hate that in about 10 years.
Exactly.
Nah, that's
way to go, you. You lived. You got a little bit older. So
we have so many other stinking holidays that are commercialized, Coach. You know what I'm talking about? It just takes.
I don't like Valentine's Day either.
Neither
How
do
about
I.
that?
Yeah, I don't. Our wives probably aren't going to be very happy with this.
Actually, April doesn't like Valentine's Day either.
Does she not? Chastity does. Chastity hates flowers.
Yeah, they die.
Yeah. You know, and like I'll get her flowers. She'll say, "Oh, I really appreciate that." And it's just like you can tell. It's just
why'd you do
they're
this?
Just in the way money at that point.
Now I got to water. You just gave me. Thanks for giving me more work, Pat. I got to water these things. I got to keep them alive. And
yeah. So we've talked a lot about Tim Grover in his book Relentless today, and Tim will say he doesn't have he's not going to give you the answer. He's going to give you the framework for what it takes to be successful in life. And I think we can sum up what we talked about today with a little excerpt here from the book. Interesting how the guy with the most talent and success spent more time working out than anyone else. Kobe is the same. He's insatiable in his desire to work. Some days we'll go back to the gym twice a day and once more at night, trying different things, working on certain issues, always looking for the extra edge. At his level of excellence, there's no room for error, and no one in the game today works harder or invests more in his body and surrounds himself with the right people to keep it in peak condition. But it's still not easy, and Kobe makes that decision every day to do the work. Again, the most talented guy working harder than anyone else. It's a choice. Each of Kobe's workouts takes around 90 minutes, and a half hour of that is spent just working on his wrists, fingers, and ankles, all the details. That's how the best get better. They sweat the details. In every workout, at some point, he'll glare at me and ask what we got left. Because let's face it, the work is hard and tedious. And sometimes that hoop looks as if it's 1,000 feet in the air, and you're trying to reach it with wearing lead boots. But he does the work because if he can't put that ball in the hoop, everything else goes away. That's a choice. It all comes back to this. No matter what you do in life, are you willing to make the decision to succeed? Are you going to stand by that decision or quit when it gets hard? Will you choose to keep working when everyone else tells you to quit? Pain comes in all sorts of disguises. Physical, mental, emotional. Do you need to be pain-free? Or can you push past it and stand by your commitment and decision to go further? It's your choice. The outcome is on you.
The best players are not working harder because they're successful. they're successful because they work harder than everybody else.
Yeah.
There's no coincidence about it. That is the reason they are there. That's exactly what you just read.
If you want to be energized, go pick up a copy of Relentless by Tim Grover. It's good stuff.
Yep. Highly recommend it.
Thanks for joining us on the Coaching Life podcast, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.